What is Cubism? You might be thinking something like this, but you're wrong. This is Cubism. Cubism was made by these guys back in 1907 to 1908. They expressed art and emotions with cool geometric shapes. Whoa. Picasso and friends saw African sculptures and they were like, OMG, cool art, ours now. Reference. As where the art form is based on. Cubism is figures turned into geometric shapes, and everything about the human figure that you know, broken, reduced to smithereens. Though mostly the same characteristics, there are a few types of cubism, namely analytical cubism, where they psychoanalyze planes of their subjects way too hard, making the finished drawing look nothing like the original subject. Synthetic cubism, which combined natural composition with another structural design they made up, it still doesn't make sense, and whatever Fernand Ledger is doing. Futurism. Exactly what you think it is. But make it typography and letters. It was first introduced by this dude in the Parisian newspaper Le Figaro. Marinetti and his pose basically made what could be described as ADHD in letter form, literally rejecting the usual clean typography and making it go all over the page, going zoom, yum. The typography really wanted to go fast. Marinetti literally compared it to a guy witnessing an explosion. You don't grammar, you scream. That's just what it is. Futurism was so silly that it influenced other art movements like Dadaism, Constructivism, and this style. They loved the violence. Even the futurists were kind of violent themselves, destroying poets and designers alike, publicly calling them cringe and forcing them to rethink. What really is design? Finally, Dadaism. Dadaism is one of the many early renditions of our present-day Twitter. It was just European dudes who were art haters and thus made art that expressed how much they hate art. Yeah. Dadaists were such haters that they even hate each other. They can't even agree what the origin for Dada is. Can you believe it? One of the main culprits for Dada was the Romanian poet Tristan Tzara, who was based on Paris because of course it happened in France, edited the periodical called Dada. But the most notable 1800s version of a keyboard warrior was Marcel Duchamp, who would literally just vandalize things because #mychoice, #anarchy, #rebel. He was a menace, but it's funny, so it's okay. Dadaism was inspired by the nonconformity of futurism, being the reason typography isn't just the same thing anymore. If futurism is ADHD, Dadaism is just a hormonal teenager.
Surrealism. Surrealism founded by the French writer André Breton, an influential art movement that emerged in the early 20th century, 1917, often incorporates unexpected combinations of objects, distorted figures, and symbolic representations that evoke a sense of mystery and intrigue, often resulting in bizarre and dreamlike imagery. Expressionism. Expressionism was a prominent art movement that originated in the early 20th century, primarily in Germany. It is characterized by its vivid, emotional, and often conveys intense emotional states and subjective perspectives, employing distorted forms, exaggerated colors, and dramatic depiction. This art movement did not have a single founder, but rather emerged through the collective efforts of various artists and groups. In Germany, two key groups, Die Brücke the Bridge and Der Blaue, Rider the Blue Rider, played significant roles in the early development of Expressionism, photography, and the modern movement. Photography played a significant role in the modern art movement, particularly in the early 20th century. Photographers such as Alfred Stieglitz, Edward Steichen, and Paul Strand, among others, as artists and thinkers grappled with new ideas about perception of various techniques, including abstraction, manipulation of light and shadow, and unconventional compositions.
Russian suprematism and constructivism lasted from 1913 to 1922, where the Russian avant-garde coined the term Cubofuturism from finding common traits in Cubism and Futurism. Vladimir Tatlin and Alexander Rodchenko led the Russian movement, where they renounced art for art's sake. Gustav Klotzis, the master of propaganda photomontage, referred to the medium as the art of construction for socialism. We then had Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, an experimenter who explored painting, photography, film, sculpture, and graphic design, used new materials in broad-range investigations. He contributed an important statement about typography, describing it as a tool of communication. In 1922, he began to make photomontages, which he called photoplastics. Following that was John G. Gold, a German calligrapher, typographer, and book designer. He developed and promoted principles of typographic modernism and idealized conservative typographic structures. G. Gold led an international revival of traditional typography, where he assimilated the new design concepts of the Bauhaus and the Russian constructivists into his work. The sans serif type, in a range of weights like light, medium, bold, extra bold, italics, and proportion like condensed, normal, and expanded, was declared to be the modern type. Succeeding him was the typeface design in the first half of the 20th century, where Eric Gill created the typeface Gill Sans, which was issued between 1928 and 1930. His first type was Perpetua, which is an antique Roman face inspired by the inscription on Dahan's column. He also first advanced the concept of an equal line length in text type. Paul Renner designed the Futura typeface, which had 15 alphabets, for the Bauer Foundry in Germany, and became the most widely used geometric sans serif family. Rudolf Koch designed a geometric sans serif typeface named Cabell, while Morrison, who is a typographic advisor, supervised the design of a major 20th century newspaper and magazine typeface commissioned by the Times of London in 1931, which is what we call Times New Roman.
So what is the Bauhaus? What is the new typography? In Germany, the Bauhaus und die Neue Typografie was founded by Walter Gropius, this man right here. It both has a few key principles, such as simplification, asymmetry, unity of art and technology, and these are just to name a few. The Bauhaus moved to different locations, such as the Weimar and the Dessau. The Bauhaus Weimar formed in 1919 and stayed strong until 1924. The Bauhaus at Dessau. It was characterized by the utopians to create spiritual society, and the early Bauhaus sought new unity and craftsmen to build for the future. Before moving to the Dessau, Gropius started to see that it dismissed the system as otherworldliness that was incompatible with his quest for an objective design language that could overcome the risks of fads and individual preferences. Authorities in Thuringia, a government in Germany, insisted that the Bauhaus hold a sizable display to highlight its achievements as a result of ongoing disputes between the two parties. Antagonism between the Bauhaus and the Weimar government had been present from the start. It grew when a new, more conservative regime took office and attempted to impose undesirable conditions on the institution. Now, the Bauhaus at Dessau, this one, produced many concepts that influenced 20th century life, including designs for furniture and other goods, practical architecture, environmental spaces, and typography. The journal and the 14 Bauhaus Broschüre, or the Bauhaus books, became crucial platforms for the dissemination of cutting-edge concepts and art theories, and how it relates to architecture and design. Sans serif fonts were almost always used, and the Bayer created an all-purpose type that condensed the alphabet in simple, logically constructed tier forms. Using careful content analysis, a visual hierarchy was created, allowing for the functional presentation of information. And with multiple relocations, financial and political issues, and other difficulties, this led to the eventual closure of the Bauhaus. It was a good run while it lasted, with it having a lot of impact in the world of arts that we have today.
What's up, guys? Today, I am going to tell you about 3 topics, namely pictorial modernism, Placastille, and Poster Goes to War. Pictorial modernism was founded by James Pride and William Nicholson. The two had decided to open their own advertising studio in 1894. However, business was not booming for them, and they terminated their partnership. Here we can see one of their early works for the Cassima Cornflower in 1894. This is another poster they did for the Harper's Magazine in 1895. The Beggarstaff's simplicity in design influenced the Placastille style and was spearheaded by Lucian Bernhard in 1906. when he had created the very first object-style poster he entered in a poster competition sponsored by the Priester Matches Company and won first prize. He emphasized reduction minimalist form and simplicity. Then, during the First World War, Bernhard was employed by the German government to produce posters for the war. Bernhard adapted a medieval style of design for his posters. One of the posters he made was for a German war loan poster which says, "This is the way to peace. The enemy wants it that way. Let us move to poster goes to war." Posters had reached a peak in importance as it was used for communication propaganda and recruitment medium during the war, since governments needed a way to recruit people and boost morale. One of the most famous war posters was the "I Want You" for the U.S. Army, where we can see a man with a burning look pointing at the spectator, which was made by a prominent U.S. artist's James Montgomery flag. Joseph C. Leyendecker, arguably the most popular illustrator in America, was asked to honor the role of the Boy Scouts in the Third Liberty Loan Campaign, which promoted patriotism in the American society. This tells us how much of an important role posters had during the war, with simple designs coming from different styles, and how they are all connected. Post-Cubist pictorial modernism. The post-Cubist pictorial modernism emerged during the era between the two world wars, marked by a decade of unmatched prosperity in Europe and North America. This movement, known as Art Deco, created graphic design that was geometrical and influenced by Cubism, Bauhaus, the Vienna Secession, De Style, and Supremation. This is Edward McKnight Kauffer, one of the graphic designers who incorporated Cubism directly into their work. This is A.M. Cassandre. Born in 1901, Cassandre was a graphic artist, stage designer, and painter whose poster designs had a significant impact on advertising art during the first half of the 20th century. A new language of form. While Edward McKnight Kauffer and A.M. Cassandre were projecting the influence of modern art through the lens of pictorial modernism in England and France, a formal approach to typographic modernism was emerging in Holland and Russia. A spirit of innovation was present in art and design. New ideas were in abundance, and by the end of WWWI, designers, architects, and product designers were energetically challenging prevailing notions about form and function. The isotype movement. Otto Neurath was one of the most significant people during the 1930s due to his creation of isotypes. He called them a language-like technique. The movement was originally called the Vienna method and was later changed to isotype, or International System of Typographic Picture Education, after Neurath moved to Holland in 1934. Rudolf Modley, a graphic designer and educator, believed that a symbol should adhere to principles of excellent design, prove its effectiveness in various sizes, possess distinct characteristics to set it apart from all other symbols, hold interest, serve as a viable statistical unit for counting, and perform well in both outline and silhouette forms.